Welcome to the Walking Dead edition of the Indie Film Hustle podcast, episode number 63. Today's quote, guys, comes from our fearless Walking Dead leader, Rick. Take a listen.
This is how we survive. We tell ourselves that we are the Walking Dead.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome, my indie film hustling walkers, to another episode of the Indie Film Hustle podcast. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Don't forget to head over to freefilmbook.com. That's freefilmbook.com to download your free film audiobook from Audible. Today's show is sponsored by Filmmaking Hacks, how to shoot and market your indie film. Just head over to filmmakinghacks.com to download your discounted copy. So guys, today, as you can tell, it's a little bit different. I have gone full Deadhead, full Walking Dead. This is our special Walking Dead edition of the podcast, and we have a very special guest this week. We have Vince Gonzales, who has actually worked on Walking Dead for seasons 2 and 3. So he was there very early on and saw the growth and how the cast kind of blew up, and the whole show, like how it started off as like this little quiet little thing, and they had no idea how big they got, and all this kind of cool stuff. He gives us a lot of information about what he did on the show. He was a assistant director, and Vince has worked on, his credits are insane, from Transformers, Age of Extinction, Neighbors, Red Dawn, The Tooth Fairy with The Rock, Step Brothers, as well as Pearl Harbor, Traffic, and then on the TV shows, and that's not, by the way, he worked on a ton of other movies as well. One of my favorites, Sandlot, Encino Man, and Son-in-Law, and Speed, for God's sakes. I mean, he's worked on a ton of stuff on TV shows: Walking Dead, Grey's Anatomy, Boston Legal, Charmed, 6 Feet Under. The list goes on and on. He is a wealth of information, and I wanted to get him on the show. And it just so happened that this week is the final episode of the season for Walking Dead, and that he worked on The Walking Dead. I am a huge Walking Dead fan. I was like, well, I got to get you on the show. We're going to talk a lot about being assistant director, stories from the set, all those kind of cool things. But I dug in deep on what was it like to work on Walking Dead, the processes, how they not torture, but razz new directors as they come in, and what they do to the new directors. So on new directors going on to sets of a TV show, always keep an eye out, because it's kind of like a fraternity sometimes. But anyway, guys, it's an awesome episode. So please enjoy it. Without further ado, my interview with Vince Gonzales. Vince, man, thank you so much for being on the show, bro. I really appreciate you taking out the time.
Hi, Alex. How are you?
I'm good, brother.
Oh, sure.
I'm good. It's been a few minutes since we've talked. We worked together. God, how long ago now? 10 years? 10 years ago. I know, right? I think it was 10 years ago when we worked at we did that Naleep thing, where you were my first assistant director on that project.
Oh, that was so fun.
It was so much fun. And then I came back the year later to be a teacher, an instructor, which was a lot of fun. And then we got to know each other on that level, as opposed to me just going crazy running around as a director.
It was a lot of fun. We created a lot of great work in a very short amount of time. It was a sort of a camp, an intensive, where we took young directors for a week, and we prepped 2 scenes from their feature film scripts, and shot them over a weekend, and
with real talent,
crew.
Yeah, with real talent.
Crew,
yeah.
Got some amazing results. They had the editors there, but they laid music down to it, and in, say, a week, we had a finished product of these 2 scenes that we were able to view and look at, and with high production value and Hollywood results.
Yeah, we were shooting on, if I remember, we were shooting on mini DV on the Panasonic DVX 100A, little camera, but that was the technology 10 years ago.
No, it was a great program,
It
giving
was.
young people or newer filmmakers who had never put the camera down,
Mhm.
who'd always held the camera. We took the camera away from them and said, "Talk to the actors."
I know
And
it was so weird because I was a director. I was that trouble director, wasn't I? Remember, if I remember correctly, I caused a big stink because I brought a second camera. I wanted to shoot. I wanted to edit. And I was like, I had no idea how to do anything else until finally the program director, she's like, no, you're not going to do anything. You're going to direct and you're just going to talk to the actors. And I'm like, but I have a second camera. I want to make this production really great. I'm like, no, you can't use a second camera.
that's true. They give you some trouble about that, but they give them all trouble because it was all these directors who had who were one man bands, and to give them a professional crew and have them step back and focus on the actors. I mean, you could tell us what that's like, because that's got to be a big freedom for you.
You know what? I'll tell you, the first time I ever directed something that was not, that I did not edit was that. I'd always edited everything I'd ever done. So when we did those scenes together, and I had someone else editing, and I would walk in and I kind of tell the editor what I wanted, then walk out. I'm like, "Wow, this is nice."
Right.
This is nice.
But that allows you to also rethink that, from being a filmmaker who could be a one man band and get it all done yourself from beginning to end, to trusting the collaborative process and having professionals and other experts and other talented people who are talented in their own fields be part of your piece of art. Having 20 artists rather than just you.
Oh, absolutely. Now we've already digressed, Vince. We haven't even started the interview yet.
Okay, good.
We just been catching up. So Vince, I wanted to get you on the show because you have a very unique perspective on the film business. You've been in the film business now for, I'm not going to say the years, but a good amount.
More than 2 decades, let's say.
Let's say more than 2 decades, absolutely. And I loved working with you when we worked together, and we've stayed in touch over the years. And I really wanted to get you on the show to get your perspective on things. But first and foremost, tell people how you got into the business.
Well, I grew up in Colorado, and I went to school at the University of Colorado, and I had a communication class. I went into the communication school, which is interpersonal communication, and it's because my roommate came. I was undeclared as a junior, and my roommate came home and said, "Hey, I just got in the comm school, and there's 30 girls to every guy in every class." So I said, "Okay, I'm going to be a comm major. Why not?"
Right.
And at the comm school, I kind of brought in a different ideas. I mean, they wanted me to write a 15-page paper with 4 other people. And I said, "Hey, I'm taking this VHS. I have access to a VHS recorder, a camcorder. Would you mind if we just did a video project instead of writing the paper? Can we try that?" And the professor was up for it, which was cool. And we did this project, and it took the communication department by storm, and they loved it. And we all got A's.
Nice.
And
now what is this? Now what is this VHS thing you speak of?
Right.
Is that like beta? No, I'm joking.
Right. But we made a film, and a video project rather than writing the papers, and to me it was a better way to communicate, and it was exciting for the comm school to see the results of this, and the whole class. We had them, and they laughed, and it was funny, and they got the point. So to me, that made me excited about film, and I decided to go into the film program and make films. And the rest, they didn't have a film program there. So I created my own independent degree and moved to LA. Decided I was going to move to LA and make movies. So
and I was looking at your IMDb, and you've worked on a lot of movies, but in your early career, you worked on some of my favorite films growing up. Sandlot, Encino Man, Son-in-Law. Those movies, I mean, when I was growing up, I absolutely love. I mean, Sandlot's a classic. I mean, it's an amazing. And you were a PA on these. Or starting out. You were just starting out, basically, in your career. So how did you get your first gig? How did you just get that first foot in the door?
Well, I'd moved to Florida because it was going to be the new Hollywood.
Yes,
right?
I'm
In
from
Orlando.
Florida, so oh, in Orlando even more so. Yes, I completely know that was going to be
Right,
the
they were
next
building
Hollywood.
this Disney Studios were built, and they were had just finished Universal
Yes, huge.
Studios, and
Yes.
Spielberg was on the TV and on the radio saying that Hollywood East is gonna give gonna be a great place to make movies, and so I didn't have a lot of cash when I moved out of college, and we moved to Florida to get started, and I worked in the film office. I was an intern in the film office, and I delivered the permits to the various commercials or whatever was shooting because I wanted to get to know what was going on, and I'd go to work at the TV station at night
Mm-hmm.
because I had sort of a TV background as a floor director. And one day I delivered a permit to an HBO movie, and it was called Somebody Has to Shoot the Picture with Roy Scheider from Jaws.
Of course.
And I met the producer and I said, "Here's your permit, sir, and here's my resume. I really want to work on your movie."
Wow.
And he said, "Well, thanks for the permit, and there's really nothing on your resume that pertains to us, but why don't you call my office and see if they need some help?"
Uh-huh.
And I was like, "Okay, great, wow."
Yeah.
So I called the office, and they said, "Yeah, come in tomorrow at 9 a.m."
That's the greatest phone call ever, isn't it?
Well, it is, and it is, and I went at 9 a.m. and they said, "Wait here," and then they said, Can you make copies of this while you're here? And how about making coffee? And here's some money to go to the grocery store and bring back a receipt. And I came back and did all these things, and pretty soon I'm saying, "Well, when am I going to get my interview? I have to go to the TV station at 3 o'clock, and I want to make sure I get my interview done. It's almost 2 o'clock right now." And they said, "What interview? You've been doing the job for half a day." So I called the TV station. I says, "I'm not coming back now or never. Thank you very much. Goodbye." And I was in the film business.
That's hilarious. So you really didn't even know you were in the business. That's how green you were. You had no idea that you had already started working.
That's right. As long as I could follow orders, I think I was doing it. And no, that was really a lot of fun, and it doubled my salary. And that job lasted 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of 2 weeks, I'm starting to say, "Well, what? We're going to finish in one more week," and I gave up a solid full-time job, and
Mm-hmm.
and what am I going to do?
Right.
And everyone there says, "You know what? We all work. You'll work again." And I said, "I don't have any experience." She said, "Stay in touch with everyone on the show
Uh-huh.
that you met, and you'll work again." So I was really nervous and kind of scared, but I just kept doing a good job. And um, amazingly, the production company picked up another show. I was down for a week before they said, "Hey, come back to work. We need you to
Mhm.
do some pickups and some deliveries and get started again." And I was like, "Wow, that fast. Great."
I've been a freelancer all my adult life in the film industry, pretty much, only other than 2 jobs that I had, which I was gloriously fired from. I'm very proud of my firings. I wear them as badge of honors.
You're no one in this business until you've been fired.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I know there's that whole like, oh God, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna work next week or not? And that's only towards the beginning. But once you like, oh, work just starts to come, and it is something that my wife took years to finally get comfortable with. Because
It's
we're carnies. We're carnies,
true.
Vince. We're carnies. We're carnival folk.
It's true. I'm trying to sell your mother-in-law on the fact that you
It took
don't have a regular job at
Listen.
a regular corporation.
Listen,
And,
listen. I tell you what, my wife's family for 3 years kept asking her any chance, like, what does Alex do again? Like they just didn't grasp the idea. Like, what does Alex do? And then finally, after 3 years, like, well, there's been food on the table, so apparently he does something, and it's not illegal. So
my neighbors are skeptical.
exactly. Now with that said, can you talk a little bit about the importance of relationships in the business and how imperative it is to maintain those relationships over the course of your career to be able to work?
Well, sure. That was some of the best advice that someone gave me, is that we all work somewhere, and if you stay in touch with all of us, someone's going to go somewhere and they're going to need someone. So that's really what you do is you meet that first crew and you stay in touch with everyone there, and they all go different directions because there's that many different projects. And, you just go one to the other. And what's strange about the business is you'll end up with having choices because it all comes at once, of course. You don't have anything, and then all of a sudden you have 4 different directions to go, and you're choosing for your career. Do I want to go work for the art department? When you're a PA, they have you do different things. Do I want to work in the accounting department? Do I want to work with the assistant directors? Or do I want to work in camera? So that's important decisions, and you always wonder, if you went the right direction, if you made the right decision. The producer on that first show kind of helped me make the right decision because I had worked with cameras and I had made films in college, and I said I wanted to be a camera assistant. I want to be a loader, which was the bottom level.
Now, please explain to the younger audience members what a loader does, because I know what a loader does, but
right. Back then, the loader actually loaded the film in a dark room, offset into the camera. So you can't do it on the set.
Or in a bag. Or in a bag.
You had to keep it dark. I mean, if you open it to any light, it's exposed and it's no good. That's what they say. It flashed. The film got flashed or something. If it was exposed to any light, it'd be no good. So the loader had to go offset. And
very stressful, I would imagine.
The most important job.
It's truly literally there's millions of dollars in your hands every day, because if you, and I know this because I was on set many times, that they would hand you over a roll, and they might have just shot, might have cost $100,000 to shoot 5 hours or whatever long it took to get these shots, and they give it to a 20-year-old
give it to the guy with the least amount of experience and say, hey, make sure you load and unload this film without flashing it. And then at the end of the day, after you've shot the entire day, which might be a $100,000 day, they hand it to a PA to drive it to the lab. And here's what the producer said to me when I drove film to the lab. He said, if you have an accident, put the film in the ambulance. Tell them to take it to the lab.
Yeah, I think that was one part of the filmmaking process that I think wasn't thought out properly over the course of the many decades that the film industry has been around at this point.
The most important job to the least experienced people.
Yes, exactly. Which it's trial by fire, to say the least. So, one of the funniest things is I had an old DP friend of mine who used to just to mess with the PAs. He would throw a lens at them to catch, but it was a broken lens, and it was an old broken lens, so it had no value, but he'd just throw it. He's like, here, catch. And when they drop it, he would lose. It's just, the on-set pranks.
Yeah, that may be, the responsibility is given to those people, because I guess, you on a film crew, you are ultimately very responsible for your position from the beginning.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. Now, you went down the path of assistant directing.
Right.
And so can you tell the audience a little bit about what an assistant director does, and then the different kind of assistant directors, because there seems to be hundreds of them.
Yeah. Well, an assistant director is part of the Directors Guild, which is part of the directors team. So there's a director and a first assistant director and a second assistant director, and various other assistant directors below that might work on the team. But there's only usually maybe 3 assistant directors on every feature film. So it's a very competitive position, whereas there might be 10 grips, 7 to 10 grips, or 7 to 10 electricians, or 4 or 5 prop people, or 4 or 5 wardrobe people.
Right.
The 3 assistant directors are very competitive. They're picked by the director most of the time to schedule and break down the film. What we do is they give us a script, and we go into a room, and the next day we come out, or a couple days, or a couple weeks, and we come out with a schedule. And the director, we've talked to him or her, and we ask them, basically, this is our schedule. We're going to start in this room. We're going to do this. depending on actors' availabilities, depending on the set's availabilities, depending on daylight or nightlight. So you have all these meetings during prep, but we come out, the first AD makes a schedule, the second AD helps execute the schedule for him.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a second AD is what they call it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's odd, but that's the way it's read. And that person kind of writes a production report and about what happened. So one's dealing with the future, one's dealing with the present, and one's dealing with the past.
Oh, that's actually a really great way of explaining it.
I hope it makes sense. But we're like the managers of the set, so we're giving information to the crew constantly, and also keeping track of overtime and keeping track of staying on schedule. So if the movie's not on schedule, it really comes down on the assistant directors to be efficient.
Right. I've had experiences working with wonderful assistant directors like yourself, and I've had experiences working with not good assistant directors. And I really never knew early in my career. I really didn't understand what a real good first assistant director does. But they crack the whip. They actually keep everything moving forward to a certain extent. I could only imagine, because you've worked with some major league directors. How do you crack the whip on a Michael Bay?
Well, it comes down. He wants the same thing you do. He wants to accomplish all the schedule as well as get the performance. So it's up to us to tell him, hey, in this 5 minutes that we have down, do you want to take the actors from the next scene and go into the other set and rehearse for 4 of those 5 minutes
Mm-hmm.
and get an idea of what you're doing, so that when we go over there, we can just nail it, and things like that. Just try and work ahead and use every minute that you can on the day, because if you don't, it gets behind you. We put it this way sometimes: if if you have 60 people on the crew, usually the crews are on bigger shows are 120 or 150,
Mm-hmm.
but let's say a medium small TV show, that if you have 60 people on the show and each person gets 2 minutes to waste, or you're waiting for them for 2 minutes, I mean, that ends up to be 2 hours of the day.
Right.
So you can't afford that. Everything has to be happening like clockwork all at once. It's got to tick like a Swiss clock.
Right. And if not, you go into OT and you start going into, I mean, like I was telling you, like when I worked with the first AD, I was shooting something and the first AD was inexperienced and I smelled it the second he was on set, and it was too late by the time he was on set, and the crew ate him alive. It just ate him alive. And I literally had to pull him aside. I'm like, dude, you've got to start controlling this set. If not, I can't get my day. And then it turns into the screaming first AD, which is like not helpful at all. Like you yelling is not helping anybody. No one, it doesn't work. So I had to, like, dude, you got to stop yelling. So he had absolutely no idea what he was doing. And I was just so upset at the production manager who hired him. I'm like, guys, seriously? I ended up having to kind of control the set a little bit because with a seasoned crew, I mean, we really are, Vince, kind of like carnies. It's like we're a group of carnival folk who go out to make a movie, and the more experienced guys will razz the least experienced guys. It's just part of the process.
Yeah.
And, when you walk on the set, they smell the blood instantly. They're like, oh, hey, he's the one. So it's a rough environment being on a professional set sometimes if you're not a professional.
Well, as I said, it's a tough crowd, and they're all very smart and they're all experts at what they do.
Right.
And nobody wants their time wasted.
Yes.
So
exactly. So now I'm gonna geek out a little bit and talk about one of my favorite TV shows on TV right now, The Walking Dead. And you worked on The Walking Dead in season 2 and 3. So please, can you tell me a little bit about how that experience was? Because you were at the beginning of The Walking Dead phenomenon. Now it's, I don't even know what season. I think they're on 6 or something like that, 5 or 6 at this point, if not more. And they've become, honestly, I think they are the biggest, highest rated television show on TV at this point, if not close to it. But at the beginning, even season 2 was still, the craziness hadn't kicked in yet. So you kind of saw between 2 and 3, I'm imagining you saw a big change in a lot of stuff that was going on. Can you tell us any stories or how that experience was?
Well, I'll start at the beginning, and even after 20 years experience, this is how getting the job goes.
Hmm.
I'm 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 flying to Colorado. I just finished a week on oh, I'm stumbling here. A show, the motorcycle show.
Oh God, yeah.
Sons of Anarchy.
Thank you.
Sorry, no. So I'm I just get off a plane. I had done a week on Sons of Anarchy, doing a second unit and additional first unit stuff.
Hmm.
And I get off the plane in Colorado where I was going to take a break, and my phone has a message on it, and I check the message. It says, "How soon are you available and interested in working on a show in Atlanta? How soon can you be here?" Well, it's Memorial Day weekend, and I called him right back on the tarmac and said, "My bag is still packed. I can fly right now. I'm in Denver. Book me a ticket. I'll go." And that's kind of how these jobs go, because they said, "All right, you've got the job, but we'll let you have Memorial Day off. You'll fly on Memorial Day, by the way,
Of
and
course.
and be here for the day after that." And
Oh,
I
that's
said, "Okay,
awesome.
great." And I said, "What am I doing?" And they said, "It's a little show called The Walking Dead, and you're replacing a second AD there." And I said, "Okay, great." So I'm coming in with no prep.
You
I
have
don't
no
even know
idea
what
what
the
this.
job is, and I had agreed to it.
You had no, but you knew the person obviously who was offering it to you.
No, I mean, this was someone that I just met on the phone.
Oh,
Are
really?
are you interested and available for this show? And I said yes. And then I say, "Well, by the way, what's the show?"
Right. And you
It's
had
a
no
little,
idea about zombies. You had no idea about.
I'd heard about the show in season one. It was really starting to gain some ground
Of course,
that
yeah.
there's a big little zombie show going on. And they said, "Well, this is called The Walking Dead. It's in Atlanta." I'm like, "Is that zombie show? I don't know."
Yeah.
So I got on the plane and I flew in, and I land. I'm replacing a second AD who was going off to do something else, and my first day on set, I walk on to in season two, the barn massacre,
Oh
and
God.
they
Oh
I get out of the
Jesus.
van,
So,
right?
by the way, spoiler alerts.
Well, see, it's season two, so it's the past. But I
Yeah.
get out of the van, and these guys are pouring jugs of blood on around people who are lying on the ground.
Oh
And
my.
then I realize some of those people are dummies, and they're pouring blood around the dummies. And it looks like a train wreck, like a train hit a school bus or something. It was a mess.
This is your
So
first day on the
it's my
set.
first day on. Now, my eyes must have been as big as, chocolate chip cookies, because the DP, or the camera operator, comes up to me, Mike Cetrazemis, who's now the DP
Uh-huh.
and the director. He comes up, puts his arm around me. He says, "It's your first day, isn't it, buddy? It'll get better. You'll think it's funny very soon. It's okay," because I looked like I was going to throw up or something.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So, yeah, after a while, you had to just treat it as tongue in cheek, because it looked so real, and you're standing there in the middle of this mess, and everyone else is laughing and saying, "Hey, yeah, put a little more over there. Look, no,
Yeah.
no, we need the darker blood for this one. Oh, great,
Go,
great, okay.
go
No,
grab
the
that
lighter blood
arm.
for this one, because
Yeah.
it's fresh."
Yeah. Go grab
So,
that arm. I need another carcass. Get
yeah,
another
yeah,
carcass in here.
twist the arm. Right. So they're all having a great time with it. I was horrified, but after a day or two, it started to sink in that hey, this is the funnest part of movie making, where you're making it crazy. It's all about make believe, and it's nothing having to do with anything that's real, or any representative of that. It's just it's a lot of fun making make believe, and here we go.
And it
So
was just and then you stayed on for 2 seasons.
we went from there, and the actors are going to do a photo shoot for Vogue,
Uh-huh.
and they come back and they're like, "We just did a photo shoot for Vogue. We just did a photo shoot for Entertainment Weekly."
Uh-huh.
And then they went to Comic-Con, and they came back and they said,
Oh my God.
"You guys, oh my God, you won't believe how huge we are." Because we're shooting in this tiny little town
Right.
30 south of Atlanta. And they said there was a line a mile and a half outside around the arena just to see us. And
That
we're all
must be
pretty proud of that.
that's pretty, yeah, and I've heard that before from other shows. It was like, I think Sarah Michelle Gellar said that about Buffy, because when she originally was doing Buffy, you're in a production bubble. Like your whole life, you don't even see the outside world. You just keep making the show.
Right.
And then the first time you step out, you don't even you're not even on the streets. You're not even reading the paper. Like, you're just the show. That's all you do. And that's
all you have time for, right?
Right. It's all you have time for. And then I guess from their point of view, they're in Atlanta. So they're not like in Hollywood. So you're in Atlanta. So you're in a bubble inside of a bubble. And then yeah, someone, I guess we just did a photo shoot for Vogue, I guess something. And I did a photo shoot for Entertainment. And then, of course, Comic-Con is the ultimate. And they're like, gee, I could only imagine that experience. It must be insane. So then, of course, you guys are all like, hey, we're on Walking Dead. That's awesome.
Well, we just keep making the thing, and all the actors are a great young cast who, may not have had a lot of big shows before,
right?
And these kids were becoming stars, and to be with them while they're becoming stars is a great experience, and it's a lot of fun because you're sharing that experience with them. That wonder of wow, people really like us, and someone's out there, there's millions of people watching us, and the show gets bigger and bigger, and pretty soon our ratings are better than Monday Night Football or Sunday night NFL shows, which
oh no, you're right,
had always beat everything.
Right, but this show's insane, and it's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, I know you told me you haven't seen many of the episodes after the episodes you've worked on, so I won't talk to you about any of those.
Okay. But I get busy. I went on to the next hit show. I was exploring other opportunities, and in that, I'm back in my production bubble where day night, and I'm eating, sleeping, drinking the show.
Right.
The way I have to work. It's what we got to do.
Exactly. Now, what was it? I mean, the Walking Dead is a show that has a lot of logistics as far as extras and makeup, and I mean prosthetics.
God, yeah.
It's so that must be for a first or second AD. It must be a massive thing to undertake, because I mean, just doing a normal show where you just have, I got how many people on set today? Okay, we've got 7 people on set. Maybe we've got a party scene with 30 or 40 people on set, and they just, how are they dressed? Great. But you've got like zombies. So and the zombies look insane. So I can imagine what the makeup process goes through. So can you explain like the most hectic day you had on the show?
Well, it's true. Walking onto that show was walking onto the hardest show that I've ever done in my life because of all those elements. I mean, you have a cast that was 11 or 13 cast members every single day, from the top of the day to the end of the day. They're all together. They're
right. The band.
They're in everything. And then you add 2 hours of makeup on various walkers that are going to be in close-ups.
Hero
then
walkers.
You have another 30 walkers that are mids, is what we call them.
Right.
And then you have, the deep walkers. If you really needed a big crowd, then you'd have a number of them that were deep, that their makeup wasn't as good as the heroes.
Right.
So that process starts way early in the morning, and these people were starting to come in at 3:30 in the morning. And when I got there, I said, this process is too hard to have a TV show. If we had a feature, we could get through it, because then there'd be months of rest after a couple of weeks.
Right.
But
this is daily.
But this
weekly.
is a TV show that had 6 months to go or something. And,
right.
Someone was going to crash their car on the way to work or on the way home because they're not getting rest.
Right.
So I talked to the producers, and I said, we need to fix this. We can't come in at 3:30 in the morning to get these people started without adding 10 more personnel to do split shifts. So a kind of a management thing and an experience thing. And I just said, listen, we could make this work if we start coming at 5:30, if we only have 9 heroes at the top of the day, and I can still give you 13 cast members. It's kind of what I know that we can push out of our factory as far as hair, makeup, wardrobe, and walkers. And the producers, I was lucky the producers worked with me on that. Everyone was glad to get another hour or 2 of rest. And the show only gets better when everyone's well rested. So
right. Yeah, because you can burn out on a show like that. And imagining you could burn out, and not only burn out, but you're thinking about people getting hurt. And that's what a first AD and a second do. They think about what could happen and what, like something like that. Like I've been on many productions where like, we can't do a turnaround like that. People need 12-hour turnaround, and you're thinking like, if you keep doing this, someone's going to crash their car. Someone's going to get hurt.
Right. And and we're making movies. We're not
Right.
doing anything that's more important than a little bit of make believe. So they understand, and that reasoning went far. And plus we're dealing with outdoor conditions. We're shooting out in the
Ugh.
grass that's waist high,
And it's a little humid. I hear it's a little humid there.
Just a little bit.
A little humid, yeah.
The temperature's only about 101, for most of
It's
the
like
summer.
Orlando all the time.
Oh my God. Luckily, no gators.
Yeah, no gators. Yeah. But you have, thousands of zombies, so I don't know which is worse.
Right.
Now,
I just have to hand it to the cast and even the extras, the walkers, because they were so excited about the show. They'd come on with all this enthusiasm, and the actors are standing in the grass and ticks and chiggers.
Yeah.
And we'd have the locations go down and beat down the grass so that the snakes would go away.
These are
and
things.
Then it's only 101 degrees out and humid. So,
but isn't it glamorous being in the film industry?
Yeah, it's just great.
It's super glamorous being in the film. I don't understand what you're saying. And hearing this kind of story, people forget that when you're watching it, they just it's not easy. It's not all like in a studio, comfortable air conditioning. They're out there doing it all the time, and those actors kill themselves working. I mean, look, in the scope of jobs in the world, it's not the worst job in the world, but it is hard work without question. And I can only imagine what it's like being in that full zombie makeup in 101 degrees
trying not to melt.
Melt more. Because I already melt
more. And the actors aren't going to, these gigantic motorhomes where they can go cool off in between takes, because we're moving so fast and doing so much work, and the trailers are a mile away, that they're sitting on set with us, sweating through their clothes just like everyone else. And that's what makes the show great, is because the cast works just as hard as a crew on doing their thing, and they know what it's like. So they're there for us.
Right. So it's kind of like an army regiment. Like you guys are all fighting in the battle together against the elements to try to get this movie made. I mean, get the shows made.
It's an experience that you have few experiences in life that are like that, where something is so hard and everyone goes through it that you're bonded for life.
Right. Even though you only worked on but you worked on season 2 and 3.
Those people are great friends of mine.
Right.
And I see them once in a while at a Comic-Con or a Walker Stalker, and the experience we've gone through never goes away. We're, you're friends for life. You're bonded.
And that's something I think in the film industry is unique in a way, because when you make a movie, when you shoot a show, it's like going into a battle together. And when you both make it out, or all of you make it out on the other side, you and I, at the beginning of this conversation, we're talking about, a week that we shot 10 years ago. It's like, and it's something that like, oh, you remember when we did this and that happened, and we made it. There is a bond that is made in production, and then that's why certain people work with the same crew throughout their career, like Clint Eastwood, Ron Howard, and when you find people that you can kind of really work with, you take them with you, and you just
you trust them in situations that you don't want to be in without them.
Right, like exactly. Like if you're in a foxhole, who do you want? Someone you just hired, or someone who's been in the battle with you 3 or 4 other times? And that's where those relationships are so important. Where those relationships are so important, not only for getting work, but also creating good work going down the line. So important. Now I'll ask one final question on Walking Dead, and then we'll move on. What's the funniest story you can share from the set?
Well, there's pranks all the time. There's stuff going on all the time, and humor is really the only way we get through it. And you really have to laugh every day, or you wonder why you're doing in this business if you're not laughing every day
Right.
or having a good time with it. Find something else. But or maybe that's what keeps us in it, is because we are having such a good time every day. But I would go on a scout. Some of the funny stuff is I'll tell you two things. We'd go on a scout with a new director who hadn't been there, and we'd be standing on the side of the road, and the director would walk into the field and say, "The scene's going to be out here." And he'd say, "Why don't you guys come out here?" And we're all standing on the road saying, "No, I don't think so." And he says, "Come on, guys, we're going to do the scene out here." And we're like, "Yeah, we understand. We've seen enough." And he's like, "You sure you don't want to come out here?" We're like, "No, because that field is full of ticks and chiggers and snakes." And he's like, "Oh, I'm only out here for 2 minutes." And he's already walking back to the road at that point because we scared him.
Right.
And the next day, he's got chiggers on his belt line, and he's itching, and he's miserable because,
Oh.
you know, yeah. So that's one of the funny stories. And then another one is we're doing we're going to smash a walker's head, and they load the walker's head up with a bunch of bloody gook and gack and stringy bits of whatever that the magic they put in there. And everyone backs up about 15 feet. And the actor's ready to smash it, and the director's standing right there, and he looks at us back there, and he's like, "What are you guys doing back there?" And we're like, "Nothing." And he goes, "Okay, action, smash, splatter," all over his pants
Oh,
and his shoes.
nice.
And we're just right at the splatter. And we're like, yeah, we've been here before, but we don't need to get blood all over us every day. So
it seems like you
splattering
guys.
a new director,
It's every time a new director came.
initiation.
Yeah, every time a new director came in, apparently you guys just razzed them.
Yeah, it's initiation. So
Now, can you tell me a big difference between working on a TV show and working on big, huge tentpole movies like Transformers or Pearl Harbor?
at TV shows, we crank out a lot of work a day. We crank out probably 7 or 8 minutes of the show a day because you only have a 7 or an 8-day schedule. And a feature might have a 65-day schedule if it's because it's a big movie, and they can go over a week if they need to.
Gotcha.
Of course, they don't ever want to. They don't ever want to because their budget's for a certain amount of time. But we shoot a lot less dialogue because you can spend more time on the action. Action takes an action scene where you flip a car or something might take half a day compared to the actors talking for 2 minutes in the car beforehand. That might take, just a couple hours. So it's all kind of the art of scheduling inanimate things.
Right. So Vince, can you tell me what lesson took you the longest to learn in the film industry?
Oh my gosh. There's so many. And I always think that, I might be successful because I made so many mistakes. So you can't be afraid to make mistakes, and you can't be afraid to get have someone teach you a quick lesson by I hate to say that I've been yelled at the most, I think, for the many things for giving information wrong or not giving it completely or giving it to the wrong person and not the department head or any silly mistake someone new in the business is going to make. They have to be taught what's the right way. So you have to have a thick skin, and it's nothing personal, and don't take it home at the end of the day if you got beat up all day, because that's part of the learning process. And those people end up being the best people to work with because they have made those mistakes and they won't make them again. I guarantee you.
So let me ask you real quick, Vince, where can people find you?
VGonzales.com or Vince Gonzales Denver Comic-Con page on Facebook.
Vince, man, thanks again so much for taking the time out to talk to the Indie Film Hustle tribe. I really appreciate it, brother.
Hey, Alex. Yeah, I appreciate you having me. Thanks a lot.
Vince is, man, a wealth of information, man. He was dropping value bombs like crazy in this episode. And it was so much fun to listen to how the cast and crew of Walking Dead were at the very beginning of the phenomenon. It's always interesting to me to see how they were and how kind of in a bubble they were down in Atlanta shooting. So it was great to have Vince on. So I really appreciate him coming on. If you guys want the show notes for the show, just head over to indiefilmhustle.com/063. You can get links for everything we've talked about in this show. And don't forget to head over to filmmakingpodcast.com. That's filmmakingpodcast.com to leave a review of the show, hopefully a positive one. It really helps us out a lot, guys. It helps to get more eyes and ears onto what we're doing at Indie Film Hustle and help more and more independent filmmakers around the world. So filmmakingpodcast.com. Thank you guys, as always, for being loyal listeners to the show. The podcast is growing like weeds. It's insane how fast it's growing and how the listener base is growing. So, guys, thank you so much for listening. I really humbly appreciate everything you guys do. So please spread the word. I want more filmmakers to be listening to not only my podcast, but there's a bunch of good filmmaking podcasts out there as well that give a lot of great information. So I want more and more filmmakers to know that there's great information and knowledge on podcasts. So thanks again, guys. Keep that hustle going. Keep that dream alive. And I'll talk to you soon.
You still don't get it. None of you do. We know what needs to be done, and we do it. We're the ones who live. You just sit and plan and hesitate. You pretend like you know when you don't. You wish things weren't what they are. Well, you want to live? You want this place to stay standing? Your way of doing things is done. Things don't get better because you want them to. Starting right now, we have to live in the real world. We have to control who lives here.
That's never been more clear to me than it is right now.
Me? You mean me? Your way's gonna destroy this place. It's gonna get people killed. It's already gotten people killed. And I'm not gonna stand by and just let it happen. If you don't fight, you die. I'm not gonna stand by and...
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.